Hello Arisen, my name is Jack, and today I shall showcase for you a special challenge. On June 16th, 2022, Dragon's Dogma 2 was officially announced as being in development. How far away it is has yet to be revealed as of this video, but I have hope it won't be too far away. So today I ask the simple question, can your pawns beat Dragon's Dogma? But before we get to the run, I would just like to ask that you like the video, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and maybe share it with your friends. Or you could share it with your enemies, or your family, or your dog. I'm sure your dog will completely understand what's going on. Perhaps the understanding is part of the limited amount of love they can give in their lifetime to their greatest friend. While I wait for you to do that, let's get started. The game begins with me pressing the start button. Can you believe that? It seems we've run into a philosophical problem already. Did I really beat the challenge if my pawn didn't press the start button for me? No, of course not. What? That's stupid. We actually begin at the end. And we wander our way through Detroit in search of a dragon. I was going to make a dragon car joke, but don't look that shit up. At first I thought perhaps I can play through this part of the game normally. This character is ultimately not me nor my character that I will create, and the pawn is certainly nowhere close to my soon-to-be beautiful pawn. But this is a challenge run, and if I don't challenge myself at all turns, I'm just a loser, sucker, idiot, stupid head. And who really wants to be that? I certainly don't. So I command my miniature army to attack for me, and I sit back and watch it all unfold. We're not here for the basic bitch shit though. We're here for the mother of all chimeras, the chimera. Do you want to see how the majority of this game is going to be played? Alright, here you go. Basically, this run is going to be a huge watch fest. So I told myself that I can't make any jokes including the game audio because I accidentally recorded the game audio and the audio of my browser on the same input, and I was watching movies. Also, I'm very sorry about this, but I turned off the lyrics to the beautiful song called Pawn Ramblin', so we won't see what the pawns say. You can be sure they always tell me about fire weaknesses when applicable as well as when enemies hold the advantage. After the Karma Chimerian is done and dusted, just like my attention span after a single boss fight, I realize this run is going to be quite difficult. Not for any reason involving actual difficulty, but because I want to fight shit, and I simply cannot. If you want a timer on how long these boss fights take, I will keep a bit of a scoreboard. The first Chimera fight took 19 minutes and 58 seconds. Except, it's our only record, so not exactly the most spectacular thing. Now on to creating my paperweight character that will do nothing except for barely anything at all. But since we're several minutes into the video, I'll read off the rules while the incredible AI that I invented to make the most beautiful character appearance known to man does its proper work. So as the rules usually go in these runs, they are relatively strict because I hate myself. So to begin our set of rules, we'll start with a pretty predictable one. Rule 1, no attacking monsters, humans, creatures, subhumans, submonsters, subcreatures, or submarines. No, actually, fuck submarines. I can attack them all I want. I cannot attack directly. It is only through the will of my pawns that I will beat this game. Rule 2. I cannot hire pawns that cost rift fragments in order to use. Yeah, sure, higher level pawns do cost, something and continue to increase in price exponentially as I choose a higher level, but it is still an easy tactic to just buy higher level pawns once I get the chance and the rift fragments to do so and make the game easier on myself. This trivializes the gamer's superpowers entirely. Rule 3. I can use spells like Anodyne or Fire Boon and their upgraded versions. Anything that does not and is not meant to deal direct damage to enemies is entirely usable. There is an exception with Anodyne, as it harms skeletons the longer they stand in it. I'll just have to be careful in a few locations. And it appears character creation is done, so you know the gist. We awaken to the beautiful sounds of birds, the ocean, and criers coping, seething, and molding that a dragon exists. We spy a beautiful lady that is actually our sister or cousin, Sweet Home Alabama style, and the winds of change pick up. That change is total destruction and annihilation. A man exclaims about a dragon in the distance, and then shit gets super real super fast. That mangy mutt, that stupid dog, that meddlesome rabbit burns the citizens of Casardis alive. So it's up to me to take up a sword and fight it off. Except I don't. I'm not breaking the rules of this run for anyone. In order to trigger the cutscene after the dragon, who is named Grigori by the way, attacks, we have to run away from him. Yeah, turns out if you just play the bitch card and run the opposite direction, the cutscene begins, where your heart is stolen from your body forcefully and sold on the dark web, on a website known as Grigori's Gullet. After waking up from our heartless nap on the beach, we have a choice to make. The choice is probably one of the most difficult choices ever made. Each of the vocations have their own unique abilities, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. Oh, right, I already revealed I'll be a pure support mage. Anyway, you want to talk about a real Hail Mary? Let's talk about the fate of the world itself being in my hands. Let's just say that if the fate of the real world were in my hands, I would let all of you down, on purpose. I'd let the world burn for a pack of double stuffed Oreos and a gallon of chocolate milk, honestly. Speaking of burning, after I obtain a new pawn that goes by the name of Rook, funny chess joke, I make my way to the nearby encampment and am immediately forced to prove myself by fighting a Cyclops.
Today I will play some Gransys Dogma.
Then I simply stand around, waiting for the Cyclops to be finished. The best part about this fight is that I finally get a chance to throw out spells, occasionally. The only spell I have that I can toss at people like a bag of change tossed at the homeless is Anodyne. Really, it doesn't do much, and I swear, these guards are far more competent than anything that Rook is doing. That's even considering that it seems like Rangers and Striders are bugged this run, which you'll see much later. Like Exhibit A, take a look at this guy in the corner here. He shoots like 4 arrows, then goes back to walking back and forth. But after the total shit show that is the audacity of the player not doing anything and letting the AI scramble for a chance to kill the Cyclops, the AI kills the Cyclops. So far so good, that Cyclops only took about 7 minutes and 10 seconds to kill. But now comes the true beauty of the game. I get to decide who exactly is going to be the main character. So, of course, as a weeaboo that hates other weeaboos, I choose to make my character look like a Japanese manga character by the name of Guts, from the hit manga and 90s anime revolving around the dark fantasy genre, Berserk. But I don't name him Guts. Instead, I name him Main McMahon, after the main McMahon himself, Vince McMahon. He's surely a good candidate for a reference, right? Giant multi-headed snake jump scare. I simply cannot do anything here, so once again, I wait. And I cast a few spells here and there, but mostly I wait. I should also point out that at this stage of the game, I can't make Guts reference a two-handed badass. Though he's not berserk, he's calm. After getting eaten, climbing atop the head of the stupid idiot beast, and doing absolutely jack shit, we cut off one of its heads and it retreats back into the mountains. Now, I gotta do the goddamn escort quest. An escort quest so impressively immersive that Yuya Takuda borrowed the idea from Hideaki Itsuno for Monster Hunter World. And everyone loves the escort quest in that game. Now it's time to walk all the way down to Santa Monica. Oh, shit, wrong video. All the way down to Grand Soren. In between healing spells and harpy yells, I ride the bovine animal in the front. Not sure if it's a cow or a bull or a yak or a bison. Looks kinda like a bison. I ride the bison animal in the front just to relax my tired little legs. Once we arrive at Grand Soren, I immediately beeline for the nearby inn to change Main McMahon's vocational pursuit after I meet a man named Mason. It turns out that I just can't do that yet, as I do not have enough rift fragments.
I'm sorry.
Have you ever gone urban exploring? Well, how about urban exploration into some ancient underground ruins beneath a great city? Would that make it urban? However you look at it, this place is filled to the brim with dangers and delights, if you take the definition of delight and replace it with the definition of danger. It seems we've got a bit of a problem here. It's not the zombies or the bats or the spiders. No, instead, it's the motherfucking ogre-powered bitch hiding far enough into the swirly ramp that retreat is hardly an option. I do not stick around long enough to get dropkicked into oblivion. The only reason for that is because I haven't decided what challenge run I want to do in Oblivion yet. So I'd rather stay here in this Dragon's Dogma where, I have this challenge run being done. Like Timmy in the well, I keep on falling down, but Lassie looks to have gotten lost. At the base of this well, there is a giant bowl, and within this bowl is nothing short of nothing. But there is something under the bowl. Oh yeah, and what is down there is certainly something, because when I try to inspect it, all I find are a bunch of worms that can cast spells. I try to run away as best as I can, but I end up going the wrong direction and tiring myself out. Then I witness as my pawns decide to leave me and get the living hell out of the well. My very own Lassie is abandoning me. As I escape the well, it turns out that I must have miscalculated the fact that I simply do not have the ability to survive here if all of my pawns go down. So, I run the fuck away as fast as I possibly can. I even end up being chased by that goddamn ogre. Since I was left to climb out of the well myself, I decide to say fuck it and leave Lassie behind. Sure, they have to beat the game, but I'm the one that has to ferry them all the way to the end. There is no way I'm going back. So it's a damn good thing they suddenly appear outside of the catastrophe that is the underside of the Dursleys' staircase. That makes things so much easier for me. And what also makes things easier for me is when someone tells me what to do and where to go. Sometimes it's hard being a playable character in a non-playable character world, but at times like these, I'm grateful for handholding. So before speaking to Sir Dude, I finally changed Main McMahon's vocation to a warrior from a simple fighter. Now he's really gonna go berserk. For my list of quests that I must choose from in order to prove myself, I decide to do a few things. First things first, I have to stop a disco rave at a nearby faraway castle. And when I say nearby far away, by God, I mean it is very far away and I will be running a lot. Halfway through our journey to disable the goblin spawn point so that they can't Zerg rush us anymore, I find myself at a crossroads. No, a crossroads is where two or more roads intersect. What's the word I'm thinking of? Oh! I find myself at a passageway. It's filled with bandits, spiders, snakes, and oh yeah, an ogre-powered bitch. This one, though, I actually tried to engage. I can't say fight because I'm not fighting. But I will admit that I forgot just how close I was to the ogre, because I quickly experienced what it's like to be one of those boxing machines in malls that people try to get a funny number on, like 420. Soon after engaging in a fight with Mike Tyson, I find myself tap dancing the most powerful flamenco I've danced in my life so far. I'm only 24, so I've got a long time to dance one even stronger and harder, and to be fair, I've never done the flamenco. As my pawns do what they are contractually obligated to do by the rule of video game AI, they only continue to get drop-kicked and uppercut into the next life. That is until I myself get swish and flicked. So let's say I beat the ogre, and then I move on. Then I actually am not obliged to tell you that, so you'll just have to guess. One thing you won't have to guess on is what I'm going to show you next. I arrive at my destination. Yeah, I never promised it would be an exciting revelation that you wouldn't have to guess, just that, you wouldn't have to guess it. And when I get there, it turns out that this broken down ruined fortress isn't having a disco rave. No, instead, the goblins that were supposed to be raving are just raving mad instead. What a bad joke. It also turns out that there are two Cyclopses that I have to deal with, and when I say I of course mean my pawns. And so my relaxation vacation begins as my pawns engage these two dastardly, one-eyed, two-tusked, stupid, idiot people eaters. I just enjoy the fine ash-filled air that smells of not only fire, but also goblin. Delightful. The fight goes well. Mostly. There is a moment where I try to save Lanford the lousy pawn, but I instead pick up some water in a nice little flask for later. I never ended up using that water, and I do get blown away by a fireball once or twice, and therefore panic heal because I didn't save before this fight like an idiot. So at least I got some adrenaline in my system before I die from boredom-induced thrombosis. It actually took about 15 minutes just to wait for my minions to kill one Cyclops. That's because they kept attacking either Cyclops lackadaisically, not giving much of a shit about the pace of battle because they're literal computer programs. I decide to abandon the final Cyclops in favor of the far more enjoyable tactic, running away. More waiting around as my pawns attack goblins, more running away from unnecessary fights, and more picking up items to eventually weigh myself down to the lowest pits of hell because I simply cannot pass up the chance to pick up a shiny object. After grabbing the necessary lever, I return to witness a 5-minute fight between the 3 dumbest pawns in the world and the dumbest Cyclops known to man. After the fight, I let in the soldiers and we raid the rest of the castle until I finally come across my third and final Cyclops of the quest. After 10 minutes of fighting ensues, and I reach the Hobgoblin Lord, I politely ask him to leave the castle, and he does just that. And I finished the quest up. With a little bit of an appearance from a friendly neighborhood griffin, I make my second most incredible journey across the lands of green and gray to reach the catacombs. Here I fight more undead, as you tend to in a catacomb full of corpses in a high fantasy setting. Or low fantasy, actually. I also have to be careful here because there are skeletons, and anodyne will deal damage to them. Thankfully, no issues arise involving healing a skeleton to death, but what does arise is a serious body count when I interrupt the eyeless freakazoid. He kind of reminds me of Danny DeVito in Batman and Robin. With the pale skin and the nose. He's like Voldemort, except if Voldemort had a nose. And if he had the ability to raise the dead. And he didn't have pure seething hatred for a 10-year-old boy. So nothing like Voldemort. Now this next part is incredibly divisive and will turn heads and question beliefs. A man named Marcello has been handed to me on a rocky gray platter, and it is my choice to spare him or kill him. I could spare him, sure, but he's the bad guy. He does get killed if I spare him, so ultimately it doesn't really matter what happens at the end of the day. So instead of arguing the semantics of philosophy involving the man who is begging for his life right in front of me, I instead choose to argue the semantics of only my pawns can deal damage as a rule. No health bar appeared, so technically we can't prove that I killed him. just that there was a huge coincidence in the timing of his death and when my pawn barreled into him at Mach 10. He could have had a stroke at the exact moment my pawn flattened him like a pancake. You never know. Now I gotta go and clean up the mess of a research party that was too stupid to live. To save you the trouble of watching me run everywhere, let me just, oh shit, wrong spot. There we go. During this stage of the run, I've found my one true enemy, bats. I cannot deal with bats. Neither can my pawns, despite me spamming for help because they're busy with the lizard people from Los Angeles. They're real. Look them up before you call me a hater. Admittedly, this quest turns out to be one of the easiest quests I've ever done. All I have to do is tell the one guy with the robes about another guy with the robes being dead. Then I just have to finish the dead robe guy's quests. Cyclops killing time, cue a 7-minute fight. Yeah, honestly, I was surprised it only took 7 minutes as well. Standing around and doing nothing while watching the final 2 episodes of Stranger Things 4 made it feel so much longer. Then I gotta collect stupid ass heavy plates with weird writing on them. I didn't know whoever the deadly necromancer was that dwelled over this ruinous waterlogged ruin was so fond of writing in a stone diary. It almost feels invasive to carry such heavy things for a kingdom to read aloud for a try not to laugh challenge. It really do be as simple as taking all of these slates back to the man standing outside of the ruin like the waste of space I'm sure we all feel like sometimes. That inevitable aching feeling that maybe we just aren't enough for the people we love. We wish we could become better, but are so used to what we're doing now and too afraid to change that we simply fear failure of changing into someone new rather than facing that change with courage. Nah, I don't feel that way. I'll just depict all of my feelings as a soy jack, and I'll depict my manic and surreal confidence as the Chad. That'll surely work, right? After doing some flirting with a princess that is actually a little taller than me, believe it or not, I must hunt a griffin. My first decision in hunting a griffin is to accept an escort quest for Madeline because I was definitely not an idiot who forgot that escort quests start with the person following you. My humble not mistake. As I'm sure you can guess, after my pawns kill a goblin or two, I sling the mighty beast upon my shoulder and throw it into a pile of bones to summon the great and evil griffin. And since we are fighting a Peter Griffin here, Madeline gets her shit absolutely pushed in. Like, look at her. She's just laying there on the ground. Scaring the griffin to Kingdom Come, my next decision in this quest is to... I don't know. I did a side quest where I got softlocked by a guard asking me to give over a letter with the most vile, putrid, hateful slurs known to man on it. I'm still not sure how they got a hold of my friend group's Discord logs, but I do eventually suck it up and make my way to Blue Moon Tower. Wow, that's a lot easier in post than it is while playing the game. Who would have thought? Then while we're here, we get to experience a griffin in its full splendor, fit with a chase and everything. I mean, the chase itself goes pretty great if I'm being honest. But at the tower's peak, I have to wait quite a long ass time for the griffin to be killed. Thankfully, it's not just my pawns I have to wait on, I also get to wait on the NPC guards to do literally anything at all. This is on track to be the longest fight in the game so far, almost hitting 30 entire minutes worth of healing and buffing and healing and buffing and healing and oh shit. Good fucking job, Main McMahon. It's a good thing you're the main character, and I'm not. But now I have to run all the way back to Grand Soren. I do run into quite a few problems with the bandits partway through the run, so I just say screw it and sprint straight through. One of my pawns decides to say fuck it and become a sick looking blue skull while I run away. Then he disappears from reality. Fine, if you don't want to be my everlasting servant, then go fuck yourself. I head over to meet the esteemed Dragon Forged at Hillfigure Knoll just so I can steal all of his shit, Berrystone included, then I run away as fast as I possibly can. I even get ambushed by a chimera as I'm running for my life. After miraculously resurrecting 2 minutes into the past, I just sorta... Now I gotta gather evidence of a nerd who didn't use NordVPN committing treason. You wanna see how I finished this quest? By getting forgeries to prove his guilt and then sleeping for 4 days to get it all over with. Before this quest is finished though, I do spend the first night doing another quest. It's time to get down and dirty with the Duke's dear maiden. She requested we come to her tower in the middle of the night so we could kiss or something. Little does she know I'm bringing a box of Magic the Gathering cards so we can play some Commander. Before we can even begin, I set my Magic cards on the bed so I don't destroy them, and then the Duke interrupts us. I hide because I'm not sure if magic is even legal here in the lands of Gransys, and then something even worse happens. The Duke sees the Magic cards on the bed and begins to choke his maiden out. Looks like the Duke hates Magic the Gathering, maybe because of how complex it can seem from the outside. I'm okay with him choking her out, but it seems that he's forcing her to lay on my cards. That shit was expensive. Then something even worse happens when I try to stop him. She steals my goddamn cards and blames me for breaking in because she didn't realize the Duke hated magic. So I get imprisoned, lashed for several hours, and then she tries to come crawling into the dungeon to beg for my forgiveness. I hate women so much it's unreal. I break out of prison using the key she gave me, and then go about the rest of my time sleeping off the days until that dummy traitor guy can get thrown into prison for the rest of his life. Now I have to go and take part in a piece of a revolution or a traitorous rebellion. I don't really pay attention to petty politics when my heart is literally absent from my chest cavity. Speaking of that, how on earth did my heart get torn out of my body completely, but the people who took care of me were able to nurse me back to health despite my lungs and sternum being absolutely zoinked to smithereens? Anyway, I witness as the man behind the slaughter outskills a French woman, embarrassing her so bad she moves back to her home country to prove herself to her father. Yeah. That was pretty easy since I didn't have to do literally anything at all, actually. But this next part is a little harder because I have to do half of something at all. That half of something is what I usually do, healing and then watching my pawns struggle to survive against ever more powerful enemies. This dude named Salamet stole some kind of plushie from the Duke and I have to get it back. So this mine that gave me so much trouble before is where I find him. And now I gotta go back to Blue Moon Tower just to get this plushie back. All it takes is abandoning my pawns as I run to the very top of the tower, knowing full well that I simply cannot fight Salamet without them. But, maybe I didn't even have to worry, because before the fight actually begins, he just sort of loses all of his health. So as he's finishing his dialogue, as soon as he casts his spell, his death cutscene begins. Maybe he had a heart attack or something? So I pick up the ring, hand it in, get told to run through the mountains, and then get told to run through the mountains again to save Gransys. Fighting the cockatrice leads to not just victory, because I simply have to scare the beast away, but also the death of one of my pawns as he is... Or maybe Perrin's a female? I can't quite tell, let me see. Okay, after picking Perrin up, he is definitely a dude. He is petrified and just disappears. Stonitis is a very dangerous disease, folks. After we deal with the weird penis monster, I have to report to Aldous Dumbledore before being rewarded greatly. Then of course, I have to do more running because my dumbass didn't put a port crystal down at the Goblin Rave Disco Club. Before I can actually get to the final stages of the game, there are 2 more stupid idiot Cyclopses that have to be dealt with. Then after that, there's another Chimera. Due to the significant increase in power for Main McMahon and the other 2 whoever the hell pawns, these fights are as smooth as butter and done in speed running time. More fighting skeletons and having to avoid healing my pawns lest I fail the run and have to reset entirely, and all that remains in this castle is the presence of 2 Lich Wizards. Lizards. And after beating them, that one not Voldemort looking fella begins to monologue. Then he gets crushed to death, as he rightfully deserved. That'll teach you to mess with vague copyright laws in a way that definitely does not cross literally any copyright laws except through one of my shitty jokes, bitch. And then after that, we end at the beginning, and at the beginning of the end, we run through the beginning that was the end despite being the beginning of the video. And also the beginning of the video game that is starring as the end of the same video game. Well, quote, end. End of quote. Repeat the line. There's a dragon named Grigori here. Hey, wait a second. That's the species and name of the guy who stole my heart forcefully from my chest. Are you saying this is the same guy? He doesn't look all that bad. Apparently he's a simp though, because the Duke's maiden, which her name is Aelinor by the way, I never told you that incriminated me for being a magic player and then stealing all $10,000 worth of cards right before my very eyes, is being chased by a bunch of goblins and then being breathed upon by Grigori. Now usually I'd say that the dragon can have her, but then I'd have to pass up fighting a literal dragon. I'll technically save her life just so I can do that. And this is where things get a little hectic. I won't spoil anything just yet, so at the start of the fight, I have to worry about being burned alive, while also saving my room temperature IQ pawns that keep running into the insta-kill fire breath instead of hiding behind the little pillars. They don't attack Grigori at all though, so we just gotta wait it out for a while until Mr. Dragon breaks through the ruins. Then it's a bridge running episode of the anime. From start to finish, it's a whole lot of bridge running, also running through towers. There is a serious problem with this part of the game though. At the final tower, Grigori continues to pester us with his fire breath flybys. Your pawns do in fact man the ballistas and do in fact fire at him as he flies closer. However, they don't in fact account for the drop of the arrows, so it's entirely random if they even come close to hitting him. And you know what? As I found out, even if they did hit him, it wouldn't progress to the next stage of the fight, because as you can see here, his health bar wiggles like he was struck, as boss health bars tend to do, and yet nothing, no health loss. So this is unfortunately where I must fail the run in order to strike Grigori and move on to the next phase of the fight. So I man the ballista, strike Grigori in the chest to reveal his heart, and he destroys the tower and flies off with me just narrowly avoiding being eaten. I climb Grigori, decidedly choosing not to attack him anymore, and when I reach the point of his back where his heart glows through his chest, it turns out that even if I didn't have to shoot him with one of the ballistas, I would have failed the run here. I have to attack his heart to knock him out of the air, and so Grigori falls from the sky alongside myself, and this is the checkpoint for the final fight. But now the real fight begins. It goes about as smoothly as you could probably guess. Most of my job is making sure I heal my pawns, giving them a fire or ice affinity every so often, pray that they actually do what they're supposed to and fight Grigori, and then yell at Enric because he just doesn't do shit against this boss. I don't know what it is, but the ranger NPCs just never did a damn thing for me in almost any fight after Blue Moon Tower. Every so often he would charge up his great gamble ability, and then about 50% of that time, he would actually fire it and hit Grigori for a pretty decent amount of damage. Overall though, he does basically nothing, so Main McMahon is the real MVP, as always. Unfortunately, the same ballista situation happened in this fight as it did on the tower previously. When Grigori perches himself upon a tower and then proceeds to fly around, Main McMahon and his fellow pawn pals do absolutely nothing except run back and forth between wherever I am and the base of the tower that Grigori is sitting on. So, I gotta shoot him down. I've already done it, so it's not like this run can fail a third time. Even if the pawns had an IQ higher than a CalArts Cartoon Network character when using a ballista on a stationary target, it would still all be for naught, because I have to land the final blow on Grigori myself. Which ends his life and thereby ends the epic gaming experience, as Gransys collapses into hollow earth, letting loose the great dangers known as skeletons and wolves, but fiery. That also means my heart is back, so maybe I can feel something now, and the credits roll. And with that, my pawns beat. I wake back up in Casardis, put on my boots, pull them up by the straps, and prepare for the real journey. Back in Gransys, I meet with the Duke. The Duke attacks me, so I just decide to throw shit at him. I'm not gonna hit him with a weapon, and I can't throw him around to kill him, despite the fact that I tried for like 30 minutes at one point. Anyway, I get chased through the city and then leap down into the Everfall, where I ever fall, and bash my head into a nearby ledge. I fight a giant eye with spellcasting tentacles and begin the Wakestone test, where I find as many Wakestone shards and Wakestones as I can. I even peek a sneak into Bitter Black Isle to collect as many as I can. But after a journey lasting way too long to cover here in a single script, video, and even lifetime I'd say, I return to face planting on a big black bowl in the Everfall, allow the Wakestones I've collected to open a path to God, maybe himself, and trip and fall into the bright light below. What do I do now, you might ask? Well, I have to beat up God. Then I have to do it again. Then Main McMahon appears at my side to fight with me, and I have to beat up God again. And when I beat up God, it turns out that I just straight up become God after slaying God. I think I might have said God too much in one paragraph, haven't I? After becoming God, there I go again. I realized that a life so dull can only be given to a man with as powerful a pawn as Main McMahon is. So I turned the sword that killed... Seems I've lost the ability to say the G word. So I kill myself and end my life. That's the same thing. I don't know why I wrote that in the script twice. And as I plummet into the Everfall, Main McMahon calling out for me, the game ends on one final cutscene, proving that Main McMahon really has become the main man. Despite their best efforts, however, my pawns did not beat Dragon's Dogma. I had to do quite a few heavy lifting tasks with my short and stout, yet irresistible and surprisingly muscular body. Thank you for watching. Like I said, this video was made because of the Dragon's Dogma 2 announcement, and while I do have some gripes with this game, it is by and large one of my favorite RPG titles of all time. Once again, please like and subscribe. It would help me out a lot. Bless you if you did. Also bless you if you sneezed. I don't know if anyone's told you that today. My name was Jack. It always has been. And remember, if you lose your heart to a dragon, but you still survive, then is your heart really that important in the first place?
Just a humble bounty hunter, man.
Stay lucky.